we can go over if we need to. So anyway.
Do you want to come and take questions with me, or do you feel you've already done that?
I could do better, but I think I thought I said quite a few.
Okay, all right. We can also ask Ross, who was there, and Audrey, who was there, and Nikos, and Scott, because I was in Korea for those events, not in Fed Square, so I think there's also this very interesting difference that we had to do when I got back and collaborate with the different accounts of what actually happened on the ground and use our audience research data with the participants to make some comparisons about how people actually participated in that event, what their expectations were.
Oh, sorry. To what degree, on one level, you're expressing unity, cooperation, homogeneity. To what degree?
Oh my God, it's so not like that at all. I'm sorry if I gave that impression.
I didn't get to the bad one. I guess to what degree does it emphasize difference?
Extremely so. I should have made that really clear. I mean, it was a necessary part of the way the projects themselves evolved, as in the transference of movement, the inability of someone to remember, the manipulation of an existing form into another form, the different levels of expectation. I mean, we made the tent in Korea because the curators over there in Seoul said that people were not going to dance in public. And then we make the tent and everyone's dancing in public outside the tent. But in Melbourne, we made the tent and it was raining and horrible night. But I think the generic forms also helped, like the dance battle form, having a form that was recognizable outside of a structure that we had.
But were there different rituals involved?
Yes.
In terms of the dance?
Yes. So the dance itself was, it was designed as a vernacular folk dance, and the gestures that made up the dance that the choreographers programmed were collected, it was very elaborate, were collected from different community groups in Seoul and in Melbourne, and were put into this kind of gesture bank and then harvested. But all of that preparation, I mean, was almost instantly forgotten as soon as it started happening. Because no one cared about the choreography, it was about the interaction.
No one had the competence.
Yeah, well, we were a bit amateurs
in
as well.
the best way, because it was vernacular. They weren't professional dancers in the first instance.
Yes.
Whereas in the dance battle, not professional, but certainly full of bluster and full of the ability to display themselves. And so different ritual conventions in the two different spots. The word that kept kind of occurring to me again and again was that every damn level here there are protocol issues.
Yes.
Every way you want to use that word, down at the technical, the Koreans are using interwoven image flow. We're using package flows. And you don't find that out until nothing turns up on the screen half an hour before. And so protocols at the technical level, but then of course at your social and interpersonal levels as well.
And institutional.
The legal level. I mean, we had to insure all the
We had to insure all the dancers. Yeah. I mean, the Koreans, obviously, we didn't have to do that in Seoul. There was no workplace safety issues with them rocking up with their tiny little tech kit and Fed Square having their enormous bank of equipment in order to facilitate. There were so many different levels.
And help me think about the public space, the Agora, which of course is full of protocols, thousands of years old. But this threw a different light onto different aspects of that idea of protocol, public behaviour in a dynamic, negotiative sort of space.
But also, if I can add, so that's 3 questions, but I also want to add to the response in relation to sort of difference. In the context of the sort of audience reception, if you like, it was very different. It's interactive. They were all, sort of making the dance, following each other's gestures, and when we interviewed them, the Korean, kind of response that you saw on the screen was, it was felt like they were next door, right? So, so really thinking in terms of Asia and Australia as very, very close there, even, next door to each other. The Australian audiences, when we started to interview them, they because of the private space of the tent, you go in and you dance. It's almost a kind of privatized communication in that in a particular moment, the Australian audiences, kind of responded with something like, yeah, I felt they were so far away. That's right. So difference then in that context in terms of, kind of proximity. One in terms of proximity, one in terms of distance, if you like. Yeah. So that's my two cents to the audience part of it. Like, we can all talk more, but there were 3 questions, so 1, 2, 3 in that order. Yeah.
So my question was about the dance battle one, and probably a question more around audience reception, but also the artists involved. To what extent were people's, or did you notice whether people's attention was focused on the performers in front of them, on the different dances happening in different countries, and how did the artists focus on the audience in front of them and the audiences that were networked there?
Well, each site developed different methods for dealing with that. It worked because just logistically it was necessary. So in Seoul, with our decision to put the screen on the ground, it was very, the Seoul dancers would step aside and let the Melbourne dancers complete their actions on the screen, and everyone's live watching that, and then it would cross feed back to them and they would respond to what the Melbourne dancers or the Perth dancers had done. But it's very different in Melbourne, where the people who are on the stage, because of this, they have this television, there's a television monitor, right? They had a television monitor on the stage because they can't see the big screen. So they're actually experiencing their counterparts through a smaller screen, otherwise they'd be standing right at the end of the stage and looking up like that in order to be able to get that interaction. So I guess we were testing out different levels. Yeah.
Okay, there was one question there, and the third one was Scott.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to talk about perhaps how these 2 projects seem to inspire kind of informal and informal gatherings. So you're creating a really formal space to then have an impromptu kind of informal gathering. And I just wanted to know, a bit more about how that came about and how you then recruit perhaps participants or audience members, and what kind of process you go through to create such a space.
I think you two can answer that.
That was actually a comment I was going to make, because there was quite a big difference between the 2 events, for me at least. The first one, part of the process of negotiating with the partners and the risk element was, we said we don't want to advertise it. We don't want to tell people that it's what's happening, so that people who come don't have preconceptions about what they're going to do.
We'll just put a tent there and people were wondering.
And that made our partners rather nervous, because they said, what if no one comes? And we said, oh, that'll be interesting. With the later event, which Ross basically organised the idea, so you can talk, but it became a much more formal event in some ways, like a festival. And because of the coincidence with Gangnam Style going global at the time, we got a lot of publicity because people said, Korean hip hop. Suddenly you're on television, on radio, and we had, 10,000 people in Fed Square over for 3 hours. So there was a lot of people who came along, and we had nice weather for the first time at all the events we ran. So they were very different in that sense. And that issue of how to keep a level of spontaneity. I think your original idea, Ross, was simply a spotlight allowing people to dance
and just throw a challenge to someone. And simple, that will work, right? And then across 3 different institutional configurations and the technical stuff, there's always, in every way, there's lag. And so it's a different dynamic from an actual battle, But that was kind of watching, as Amelia was saying, watching the 3 different sites kind of figure out how to negotiate that lag. It was pretty interesting.
And the communities, that ARCO is in a theatre district and was programmed as part of the Seoul International Performing Arts Festival. So it was already in a spot which has lunchtime traffic, cultural events happening, and I think Fed Square was having to market itself a lot more, actually.
Yeah, we did it on a Sunday afternoon. There can be a lot of people there.
I've done some of this work many, many years ago, but one of my questions would be, did you integrate handheld devices into what you were doing? Did you think about
previous to these two dance projects, before I joined the team, they
Well,
had
we
done,
did the participants,
yeah,
Not in this one.
not in this one.
not here, okay.
They had, that was the first iteration, was they were both SMS triggered participatory screen works.
I'll shut up.
Why?
Now, I'm just curious about the emphasis on closeness and distance. I mean, the magic of what you were doing is in a way that distance dissolves. On the other hand, the awareness of distance is paramount or is important for the success of what you were doing.
That's exactly what the first project was about, which was had two elements. One was word association about your city, what words come to mind, core value. And the other one was whereby it was a map of the world visible on the screen, and people could put the place of birth of themselves and their two parents. And then lines would go from where you were to the... And the feedback we got from that was precisely this interplay between distance and proximity. And one of the most magical moments for me during that was that prior to one of the iterations of us using Fed Square for that project, there was a graduation ceremony from RMIT, a neighbouring university nearby, and there was a lot of young students who were there with their parents, who were overseas students. And I remember we interviewed an Indian student. He says, "I can't tell you how proud I am to see my birthplace and that of my parents on this day on the civic square of this city." Mm-hmm. And it was a very sort of kitschy but sweet, sentimental but very powerful moment of feeling as an outsider, as a visitor, as a student, etc., and recognition in this new metropolitan kind of civic space. But also acknowledgement of their diversity, and because the map eventually becomes very multiple lines going because of the different places from which people originate, etc. It becomes very rich with the diversity of that.
So there was one comment there? No? Okay, one, two, please.
Thanks. Just coming back to your kind of points at the end here and thinking about this kind of choreography and I guess performance, and then the question, like an art historical question really, is documentation as well. So I'm just kind of wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, I guess, your sense of, how this kind of work gets archived and what some of the challenges are of doing that, or what kinds of things came up for you thinking about how to archive a project like this.
We have a book that helps. Thanks, Nikos. We have Nikos to help us with that. It's a good question, because obviously we're dealing with events and they have a character that can't really be preserved particularly well in this textual form. We did maintain a website for the duration of the project, which I don't know what happened to that.
Yeah, the website still exists, but it's embedded, and the website's archived, so there's a lot of layers to get into that. I'm fixing that up in the next.
That wasn't empirical, but it's just more like a conceptual.
But I guess
question.
because the works, this idea that the art would be the tool by which, or not even the tool, but the art and the research are the same thing. So there is no. The art would produce the findings, but also test the logic of the hypotheses that we were trying to, does this actually, will this pan out the way that we think it will pan out? So in any kind of performative event, it will never be the same in a documentational sense. But I guess, I don't know if there's
Well, that's where the Tina Segal point is very important. Action is the medium. Transforming the action.
you transform the acts.
Yeah, transforming the act.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
the experience in the document, there's an interplay constantly between the two.
And I think in the context of that project, it was really about the two communities and different cities coming together, that moment of encounter and transaction, right, at the space of the transnational, with the screen as this context. And that was the event, and that moment that was important for us to sort of test that. So that was
also I think it's documented or archived in the institutional memory, like of Fed Square as well, because they have done subsequent dance battles and are interested now in working with large screen communities in this way that I think probably is assisted by the memory, the institutional memory of it actually functioning in a way that they thought it might. Yeah.
So that's okay. One last question. Yes.
I was interested in the fact that you'd spoken quite a lot at the start about what curation is and the idea of fixing or preserving something in this context of having a thing and a record. But what you ended up demonstrating is really the frame of thinking about things in terms of choreography is maybe more useful, and it's often used, dance is often used as a metaphor for thinking about the life of the public realm. Jane Jacobs talks about the place ballet as something that can, recurs over and over and is always improvised, not a fixed thing. So I wouldn't be too concerned about whether the thing that was choreographed turned out exactly as it might have been conceived, because that's not the point.
Well, that was definitely not the point.
The point is the bringing together of...
that's what we hoped for.
Right, the bringing together of time and space and people, creating opportunities for these kinds of things to unfold.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's more the
With some sort of scored code, saying this might prompt something.
But as you're saying about protocols, it gives a structure for things to then happen within, in a way that just making a space maybe doesn't do.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.